What we are going through right now is a transition where personal branding is just going out because it's so easy to manufacture with AI, right? We can all manufacture this personal brand, we're on a yacht, freaking doing whatever. But character branding is really what matters. And character branding is revealed through your stories and your actions, not your brand.
Welcome to the 9 to 5 Quitters Club, the podcast uncovering the creator entrepreneurs at the forefront of a work revolution. Recently, we had the opportunity to sit down in person with Terry Rice, Brett Dashevsky, and Colin Rocker, all experts in building community in their own way and to serve their own mission. In this episode, we explore how each one defines their purpose and mission.
I'm a career educator online, but I'm specifically speaking to my experience as a first-gen professional, what that's like, being able to speak relevance and relatability into that specific experience and to create spaces for people, both physical with my community for the first and also in my content. I feel like that should be enticing enough.
We also challenge the concept of 1,000 true fans and share what really matters in building a sustainable creator business.
That's data supported too. I've definitely seen across the board, the largest social accounts statistically have the lowest engagement. And you're also seeing people with smaller accounts, if they have their own brands or even they're able to get more, better, deeper brand deals because brands today want to be able to tell deeper stories.
And make sure to stick around till the end for actionable advice on how to build a meaningful community yourself, regardless of the platform, online or in person.
You're gonna have to do things that don't scale, and you gotta be consistent. I remember Colin was talking to me, asking for some advice about kicking off for the first, and I'm just like, set a cadence that you can realistically hit, show up each time, have the same people show up each time if they wanna come, and you're gonna have to do things that don't scale.
This episode is packed with insights on how to build a sustainable creator business through authentic storytelling, community building, and strategic monetization. Brett, Terry, and Colin all share their personal journeys, challenges, and the mindset shifts that help them build lives that they don't want to escape from. Let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Terry, Brett, and Colin.
What's my message to my 1,000 true fans as to why they should follow me, essentially?
What's the promise you can make them for why they should give you $100 a year and sustain your lifestyle as long as you live?
So I think a lot of my content is I'm a career educator online, but I'm specifically speaking to my experience as a first-gen professional, what that's like. And so I think that specificity and being able to speak not truth, but just like relevance and like relatability into that specific experience and to create spaces for people, both physical with my community for the first and also in my content. I feel like that should be enticing enough. But yeah, I've never asked for the $100, so I don't know what the response would be. So
Yeah, I would say this. My overall goal is to help people live and tell better stories. And the way that I do that is by telling my own stories. And sometimes they are quite painful, but people give you opportunities when they feel connected to you. And sometimes that connection is made by sharing with people moments of your life. And the reason why I do is because I know a lot of other people, everyone has these amazing stories trapped inside of them, but if they're afraid to tell them or don't know how to tell them, then they won't get recognized and rewarded for who they are. They only get rewarded for what they do. So it's a huge unlock when you realize you don't have to worry about protecting, proving, pleasing. You can just be yourself. And the best version of yourself is really all you have to be. So that's my goal, is just to unlock that with people and show them how to have the authority, the audacity to share their adversity, which gets them recognized. So,
love that.
And the last thing I'll say is what we are going through right now is a transition where personal branding is just going out because it's so easy to manufacture with AI, right? We can all manufacture this personal brand, we're on a yacht, freaking doing whatever. But character branding is really what matters. And character branding is revealed through your stories and your actions, not your brand.
I like that. Just to add to that point, and I'm happy to share why people should give me $100 for my community. But there is this more element as we take things offline and as someone building an in-real life community, like the character branding thing is interesting where, I want people to actually know me and my personality and just like how I feel in real life. Just like we just met today. And it's like you feel a whole different, personality and understanding of someone. And there's like this nice character branding that happens from the first interaction that we had. And on my end, with my community, helping creators and creator economy professionals on their journey in this new and emerging industry, what is ultimately the internet, right? And with content filled. And so helping them ultimately make a living by being a creator, or at least make a solid side gig living by being a creator. And of course, all those that are supporting those individuals, whether it's marketers or whether it's founders that are building in this space. And so I'm just trying to be a voice on the journey as I'm ultimately in it, but also someone who's been on the other side and can share clear tactics and insights with people to actually just make it in this space and level up as best they can.
So I want to challenge them this concept right away, because this is like 2008. I think Kevin Kelly from Wired coined this term. That was like the basis of making a living online for a long time. But even talking to Terry a little earlier, he's like, then you only have $100,000. And even in this space, like, does this even seem relevant anymore? What are your goals as far as the audience size you build, what you're trying to build? Is it how many people you reach? Is it the money? What are you in it for beyond your mission personally?
We were just at South by Southwest, and we were on a panel at our event that talked about 1,000 true fans. It was such a convenient conversation. And one of the things I asked about was kind of like this element of, you have the 1,000 true fans, and then can you get another 1,000 true fans? Like you don't need to stop at that, but I think that this concept just enables you to focus down on developing like deep relationships with your audience. And it's just easily encapsulated by saying like this term 1,000 true fans, right? It could be 10,000 people, but just so people don't get so caught up in being like, I need 100,000 followers, because as we discussed, that actually might be more of a detriment to you, because like you're so broad and you don't really come off like you have the clear audience that you need.
Yeah, I think that's data supported too. I've definitely seen across the board, like the largest social accounts statistically have the lowest engagement. And you're also seeing people with smaller accounts, if they have their own brands, or even they're able to get more better, like deeper brand deals, because brands today want to be able to tell deeper stories. And so it's not about getting the widest reach with the broadest voice. It's about who is actually benefiting from my product or service, and how can that person speak to their experience. And so I think with me, I feel like I'd like to do a hybrid approach. I'm always open to someone in my audience that wants to support my journey and help me along the way. But I've also gotten to where I'm at today through my work with my brand partners. And so I think I've worked really hard to make sure that I really believe in the mission of everyone I'm working behind. And I'm choosing partners that I can invest in and they can invest in me. And it's sort of a longer term partnership, not a one-off brand deal.
Yeah, I think we're aligned there, because some information is just so old and outdated that it should be banned. I mean, 1,000 true fans, like I get it, it sounded cute back in the day, but like there are people listening to this right now thinking, okay, how do we get 1,000 when they can't even get like 100 on their newsletter? So for us to make that the benchmark is just wrong. For me, I don't think about getting 1,000 true fans. I mean, it would be great, if I do, but similar to you, like, a lot of my revenue comes through brand partners, and they have millions of fans who are on their email list, their social channels, so on and so forth. So that's how I help those individuals. And my goal is to let these brands see me as someone who can make an impact with their audience, who is authentic, who has a unique voice, so on and so forth. And then they distribute my content. So that way it's less pressure on me to say like, how many likes did I get today? It's like, dude, just like post good content, people will recognize it, and then amplify it on your behalf. So that's the pathway that's worked for me, just because I got 4 kids. I don't have time to like, comment, and DM all the time. And for me, that's been the pathway that's worked out very well.
With all of that though, there's very few creators who I've found when I talk to who actually have an end goal. They have a mission. Most of them at some point win the financial game, but then don't stop. So like, what is the end goal? Is there an end goal?
I've been thinking about this recently as I'm building Creator Economy NYC, and it's something that, has enterprise value and everything. And I've been asked, like, oh, if someone wanted to acquire the community and the IP of the brand, like, would you do it? And, if there's a compelling offer, then it's like, sure, of course, right? Like, that's the American dream there. But also there's this element that I'm like, I love having my access to this community that I own and that trust me and that listen to me, and that, with great power comes great responsibility. But for me, like, I kind of see the community that I'm building as something that is just going to continue to grow long term, that fulfills, the intrinsic part of me of like being a part of something bigger than myself. That is just really makes waking up every day so exciting. This idea of like impact over income. I think that through impact, the income will come. But I have thought about just like continuing to have this distribution, and then building stuff that I then can have the core audience there to buy, that have the distribution. So if I'm building a tool for creators, or it's a tool for marketers like I'm building now, I have that access to these people. I have the brand to be able to sell to them. And it's not about the community being a way to shill stuff. It's just the fact that it's like, this is my distribution. This is a community that I built trust with, and I can be a dedicated voice there. How perhaps can I build other stuff that maybe can be exitable while still having that community as my distribution arm in a way to stay relevant and impactful in the industry? But I think it's something that I'm curious to hear how you guys think about it as creators. Like it's like such an unspoken thing in the creator economy. Like, are you will we exit? What's next? Did we get a job?
I think the term like exit or like having this like large liquidity event like in the creator economy, it is a very interesting concept. A session I attended recently on creators that had built themselves 7-figure businesses, it was a large part of the conversation was around when that private equity firm comes and they're offering you an 8-figure sum for your YouTube channel, how do you actually exit that business? Because you're, in legal terms, the key man or the key individual, right? That's not a problem I have. That's not where my business is at today. But I think as a creator, as an entrepreneur, someone living in this city, I truly, to what you were talking about, I love what I do. I love being able to wake up and be able to speak from a point of relatability, from impact, from education, from the experiences I've had to be able to speak into the lives of others. And I've got the context to realize that my dad was a plumber. He worked 365 days a year. When I moved to New York, I was sleeping in an attic, couldn't even afford an apartment. And so I've been able to see that whole journey in my own life. And so to be able to wake up and speak through my own experience to someone and in my community to find value in that, like, that's amazing. Like, I feel like I'm living the dream today. And so I feel like I don't have that VC, that equity business sort of moment when I'm going to create this asset that ends up getting sold. I just hope for me, the being able to play sort of is the end game for me.
At the moment, it sounds like you're also just enjoying that you've been able to build this lifestyle for yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would always argue like this element of like, don't go into content creation because you want to like be rich and make $1 million. I think that there's actually a greater purpose there where it's like, go into being a creator for the sense of that intrinsic value, but also this sense of freedom where it's like you can wake up and be on your own schedule. You maybe don't need to work the 365 days a year that like we're challenging this 9-to-5 element that Teachable, promotes so much. And so I think that's like such an interesting point when we talk about exit or money making. It's like, sure, there's going to be that 1% that are able to figure that out. But as a creator, like you're just enjoying the fact that like you're on your own schedule, you're able to create your own impact, you're able to be a creator. And then of course there's the element of hopping off of the brand partnerships train by maybe it's launching stuff that can be more scalable, like digital products or even courses or Shopify, whatever it might be.
I think we're all aligned because I'm not currently living a life that I want to escape from. So I'm not thinking like, when should be over? You know what I mean? Like just like thought going through my head. I mean, I went through this exercise. You probably heard of it, like Ikigai, where you get very clear on like your purpose, how to show up in the world, so on and so forth. And I landed on speaking and writing. That's all I want to do is speak and write, like teach people how to like live and tell better stories. And I even think about my father as well. My dad worked in corporate for about 40 years. And when he retired, he was bored. So he started leading workshops in his home. So he like got all these chairs, he was getting stuff catered, not charging any money. I'm like, who are these freaking strangers here? But he was bored, right? So he wanted to have a sense of purpose. So for me, I'm like, if I already have that sense of purpose and I see that my dad was doing it, long after retirement, well, that's the path, right? And I also think about the lifestyle I have right now. It's about 11:30. I've already dropped my kids off at school. I've already worked out. Now I'm just sitting here on a couch. Like most parents are working right now. You know what I mean? Like I'm just sitting here talking to you guys. You know what I mean? Though it's like they're doing like reports and stuff and like all these meetings and everything. Absolutely. So I'm like, why would I want to escape from this? Like my ideal life, I'm living it. Write a book every 3 years, then go do speaking engagements, write another book, so on and so forth. Like that's it. You just exist and inspire people just through your actions, not just through your words. So for me, like, I'm not trying to check out anytime soon.
I think that's also where the authenticity and relatability piece comes in, because those are becoming buzzwords in this space along with personal brand. But to me, I see that as you better be speaking from an authentic place because you are on the creator's treadmill, right? Yeah. There is no sort of getting off unless you build something that you can then exit from or hand off to someone else. And so I hope that you're doing something where you're working towards that speaking and writing, or you're living that life, because it's you do have to show up with a shocking level of consistency that I feel like surprises many people.
I want to jump in real quick. Yeah. What we need is Bruce Fowler, he's an author, an amazing person. He said, what you need is unimpeachable authority. So when you're talking, like what topic can you speak to with unimpeachable authority? So on my end, I talk about resilience and overcoming challenging times. Well, on my end, I battled alcoholism. I actually went to rehab for it. I've lost 4 family members in the last 10 years. I lost my son, my father, my brother, my grandfather. So if I get up and say I'm resilient, he's got unimpeachable authority, right? So again, that's why the character brand's more important than the personal brand, because that can't be manufactured.
And to add to that point from a character brand standpoint, and also you have an amazing story, and appreciate your vulnerability and sharing that with everyone, because I think it really does build this sustainable place, and there's more people out there just like you, which is super interesting to be able to find through your content and community building. Also, this element of just like continues to provide value to your audience, and I think about like education as a way to be sustainable in this space. Hence why I partner so much with Teachable, because we're just aligned on that. There's this guy on TikTok, you guys probably know, Hub's Life. He does like the 9-to-5 stuff. He recently left his 9-to-5, right? And he's been doing all this day in the life content, which has been great for like capturing attention. But now he's left his 9-to-5, and like the attention is slowly waning, but also this intention that he was building with his audience from a relatability standpoint has completely diminished. And what I mean by that is like attention is like, you have people that are following you and seeing your stuff, but like intention is like, will they take action for you? And I keep seeing like people being like, sending hate from Missouri, and it's like, oh, this poor guy. But how are you going to build sustainably as a creator when kind of there's the character element is gone, the authenticity is gone, and you don't have a deeper community there, and you're not necessarily providing educational value or knowledge value to your audience? People loved watching him because they were like, oh, like I lived this same life, but now his life is a little bit different, and it's like, so it's fabricated. It's fabricated. I'm like, you're kind of living my life now, right? Our life. So that's, if he was throwing in there, talking about the journey on how to get to where he is, maybe that would drive a whole nother element for him. But
I think it shows the difference between niche and maybe like a premise, or there are other words, and other people have made content on this. But like I made, and I still make, career-focused content. And even though I don't have a traditional career path anymore, I always made videos that was like, when I got that first consulting job, it allowed me to take my family on their first international vacation, right? And that's a relatable moment that I can still produce those moments now as an entrepreneur with one young son at home. But I've been reflecting on that situation a lot, because I'm like, wow, how do I position myself in a way where hopefully I don't have to receive, or I receive less of that sort of reaction from my audience, because they feel like they're on the journey with me, and I haven't sort of pulled the rug underneath them and said, joke's on you, like this is now a completely different life I'm living. Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Teachable, the platform that empowers you to share your knowledge, engage deeply with your audience, and earn, all on your own terms. Because you are more than your 9-to-5, and Teachable has everything you need to grow the business or side hustle you think about while you're at your day job. You can get started turning your knowledge into a business for free at teachable.com. That's teachable.com, which is also linked in the show notes or description, wherever you're watching or listening. Okay, now back to the episode.
I do want to, though, whether it's an exit strategy or however we think about, we still haven't seen the elderly creator. Right. Like even Casey Neistat is still young enough to look great on camera. Is there an end game? Do you think about or even see what the later part of your life is? Like you can write and speak, but also when you have to be on camera, and the expectation at the moment is that, like, I haven't seen that old creator doing the kind of value forward stuff you're doing.
Entertainment creators and performative creators, like that can be very exhausting, and you find yourself maybe like, man, I can't keep doing this anymore. But when you think about like the knowledge creators, the commentary creators, like what greater thing in life than teaching, right? And being able to spread wisdom and connecting with others. And I find that like, I want to be a creator for the rest of my life. I want to be 85 talking and relating to people that maybe are younger or in my age realm. So from an end game standpoint, like I want to maintain the audience and community that I'm building so that I'm able to have like continued impact, but just continue to have other things that perhaps I'm building on the side, and like Creator Economy NYC, or just my personal, my character brand in a sense is growing with me, and people are following along for the journey. So I just think that that's an interesting element, that when we do what we do, it's like, are we going to get tired of like sharing our journey and connecting with people?
I guess to be specific, not are you going to get tired, but will your business inherently have to change when you look different, are different?
But I'll say a few things because I'm like the oldest person here. So like I'm close to 50. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm my.
That made me feel terrible about myself.
He's like, I work. I drop my kids off. I work out in the morning. I'm like, shit, man. I ran late here.
I mean, I was late too, but So the way I think about it is this, right? So if you're a subject matter expert and that is your brand, you could be in trouble as you get older, because sometimes people are like, all right, man, I want something new and fresh, so on and so forth, right? But I think what some of us are doing is we're building a lifestyle brand. And the benefit of having a lifestyle brand is you can change your topic too. Before you used to be the guy about how to get a job. Now you're like, hey, productivity, whatever it is. And to your earlier point, though, I have seen some older creators and they're just staying in their lane. I met this woman who had a course about how to be a good grandparent. to get invited to hang out with your grandkids more often, right? Stop ignoring, knowing your kids, so on and so forth. So I saw that. Another woman I know on Teachable, she built this course about how to build an urban chicken coop. And that thing sold like nuts because how many other people have a course on how to build an urban chicken coop, right? So it's like, that was her lifestyle though. She's like, I've been raising chickens forever, so I just want to make a course about it. So I think you have to realize when it's time to evolve. Like if you're like 60 years old trying to dance on TikTok and it's not going too well, like, hey, maybe do something else, go to like Reddit or something. I don't know, like something different. But there's a space for it. I think there's where you run into trouble is when you're trying to act younger than you are and you got the hat on backwards and you still got the earrings in. It's like, bro, like you're old, just admit it. Like everyone's okay with it.
You got to evolve. The panel, I hosted a panel on personal branding. We discussed this, that like you want to grow with your audience or your audience is going to grow with you. And people will stick, whether you change your content, like, if I jumped from creator stuff, startup stuff to something completely different, well, my hope is that people have resonated with Brett and Brett's character and story, that they'll still follow along. Sure, some people may trickle off, but like there's still the 1,000 true fans that might be like, no, I love listening to Brett. I love seeing his evolution. I'm evolving with him as well.
I think this will by far be one of the most egotistical things, but I think the journey of a creator is also the journey of like a famous musical act, right? Whereas like if you look at the albums of someone who has been fortunate enough to be in the public eye for 10, 15, 20 years, they are taking you through, or a great comedian, they're taking you through the phases and story beats of their own life, right? Someone that I've an immense amount of respect for that I was able to meet last week, Chris Do, huge creator on YouTube and other channels, right? He has this sort of now famous quote from a past interview he did where it's like, if you want to advance as a creator, you should go to therapy. Because I feel like if you don't know who you are and sort of what you're dealing with, it's like you talk about resilience, right? I mean, I've got some stuff there where it's like some of my biggest, most important pieces of content that I feel really proud about making have been times when I've been really vulnerable about my journey as a father or my journey in my marriage or my journey throughout my career and things that have happened. And so I think if you're taking someone on that journey, if Brett decides to raise VC and start some other business or it goes in some other direction, you just got to make sure that the audience feels they're being brought on the journey with you and it makes sense based on who you are, right? I think there are no wrong moves. The only wrong move is like, does that make sense based on who you are? Like, where is this coming from, right?
When you pivot as a creator, it's scary. And that's why people get trapped in roles they no longer want to serve, right? They suffer identity foreclosure, right? I was the guy who talked about this. What happens if I talk about that? So on and so forth.
Foreclosure.
But on my end, cool word, right? On my end, I got like sick of being the guy who only talked about digital marketing. That's what I did during corporate. And at one point, I just emailed my audience and I was like, hey, look, please unsubscribe. I appreciate your support, over the years, but going forward, here's what I'll be talking about. If you don't want to go with me on this journey, just hit the unsubscribe button. If not, then hey, I'm glad to have you. That email got the lowest unsubscribes of any email I've sent out before that. And I'm like, I can say, hey, do this free class. Which unsubscribes. I can say, please subscribe. They're like, no, dude, we're good.
They also are being confronted by the teacher, and they're like, I'm gonna stay.
Yeah, so I think you got to make that pivot just boldly. People are like, how do I do it? I'm like, you just say it out your mouth, bro. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I think people will respect that. And if they appreciate your character, again, not just the fact that you can teach them how to get a job, they will follow you along. But if you're only a subject matter expert, which is why people have to stop doing all this how-to content, people will not go with you on that journey. There's someone else who can say the exact same thing as you as well, so that there's no stickiness there.
This is also the antidote to AI as well, because we've been talking a lot, and at South by, there were a lot of panels and discussions around how AI is changing content creation. Knowledge creators, how are they going to move their courses and their digital products? And to me, the antidote to that is you have to be able to give your audience something they can't get from AI. And that's your story on resilience. That's my journey figuring out what fatherhood is, right? Your journey building your community. Like, these are specific stories that our audiences relate to us. Like, it's our lore, right? And so that's what you can't take away from AI, because I 100% agree with you on the how-to stuff. That is something where like information is become commoditized, right? People want the stories, they want the relatableness, they want the community, they want the access.
I want to kind of tap into that, and like, as you look at the next couple of years, because you all have chosen very different places to kind of build your audience or to focus on. If we're still thinking in that narrative of the 1,000 true fans, but the person who's going to grow with you, follow you throughout your career, be someone that still is invested in you in your 80s when you're still doing this. What are you thinking in the next 2 years as far as where you invest your time? As the For You page becomes like discovery really only, there are like Teachable, Patreon companies like this. We're trying to fill a gap below that, but what is the future of where you offer education to people beyond that top of funnel?
Yeah, I think that's, first of all, I think creators that don't have that question in the back or near the front of their head, they're going to lose market share, right? If you imagine over the best, like it's something that it's the whole reason why I started my in-person community here in New York. So I'm starting to do these in-person networking events. The community is called For the First. So it's for first-gen professionals, but also anyone who's just doing something new and different in terms of relative to their family or their community, right? I'm inviting them in. And so we've done a couple mixers that have been really, really successful. But I'm going to start, that'll be my platform to bring in experts and do panel sessions, or I may do a formal, like, it's how I'm going to work on my keynotes, right? If, can't get invited to events, I'll do my own, right? And so it's like, it can form all these different sort of things. And so I think 100%, like one way I'm doing that is going from URL to IRL. But I think also creating opportunities like an email, like with digital communities to create off-platform entryways so my community can interact with me. I think that's going to be.
I think you called it like building the table.
That's right.
Whenever you're, really like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want a seat at the table, you better be really damn good at building tables. Yeah.
I mean, very similarly to Colin, of course. I mean, we met in real life in my community. I mean, we just met here in real life, but the people that have talked about you, Terry, I've met in real life at my events and stuff. So it's like, I want to continue to invest in real life stuff because it goes back to this human element, this connection element. That's where I thrive. Love meeting people in real life. Love speaking in front of people, not necessarily a camera. The camera can be there, but I like to have a real audience, and also fostering those connections. And I think that there's something really great when 2 or 3 people meet at my events and then become like friends, or they collab or something. Like I was able to be that touch point. Creator Economy MOC was able to be that touch point. And to me, that's really valuable, and also leads into people being fans of what it is that I'm building, or fans of myself. So investing in things that I guess go deeper. Newsletters. My newsletter is definitely a core part of my business. Community and in real life stuff, whether it's bigger events or dinners, intimate stuff, and also like courses and digital products. I want people to be able to go deeper. Hey, we talked about this on a panel. We just had this conversation. What if I went really deep on that? And the people who care about that will maybe be the purchasers of that, or it's a free product. But also from a top of funnel standpoint, but still maintain that deepness. LinkedIn, I think, is a great place too, that you can still go deep. It has this weird element where it's a top of funnel, but also you can go deep. It's like a level below to an extent, which is why it's such a great place to actually be able to, the jump for people to go from following you on LinkedIn to maybe purchasing something from you, I think is a smaller leap than on another platform. And purchasing something that's deep, not like you're purchasing a t-shirt, like you're purchasing like a course or a ticket to an event or something like that. Those are like higher tier products that you're selling to an audience. So I'm focused on anything that is going to go deep and enable like sustainable career path in this space, because it's something I preach so much. I don't give a shit about virality. I am just focused on going deep and people playing the long game, and just having people have that mindset of like, no, it's going to take 3 years. It took me 3 years to be sitting in this chair, 4 years, 5 years, this whole decade really. And it's probably going to be the same for you if you want to grow sustainably and not be in perhaps the position where you're like, oh shit, well, I was just showing day in the life videos and now I quit my 9 to 5. So where am I at? It's like, well, you were going for the virality, you built a great audience. Now the next thing is, how do you keep sustainable with that? So
I also agree that in real life, or you said URL, IRL. Yeah. I'm still like what I came up with. But I like that a lot because
that's floated around a lot. Yeah. It's a good one.
I did. It should be a topic at South by Southwest next year. But yeah, I mean, on my end, like selfishly, like what's the point of being 6'4" and jacked if you're not meeting people in person? Seriously, you know what I mean? Like, that's part of the brand.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I met you,
that's also how I give speaking gigs. You know what I mean? So it's like that's the point. But when I go to in real life events, I want people to already know who I am to an extent already. So the online stuff does matter, and that way it's like, oh yeah, there's Terry instead of like, you know, who's that guy creeping in the corner or whatnot.
Yes.
But
and people have already felt you a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you're on FaceTime or something, where you've been texting them through your post and your newsletter and your books.
Yeah, they feel like they already know you. And that's the goal, right? Not to have to start from scratch. So that's why you build a brand 2 point. It's not about going viral. It's like the right people need to know who you are. But in regards to like just scaling a bit more, I mean, I know there's courses, there's newsletters, so on and so forth. I am looking at AI agents just because if I can put my knowledge, my coaching knowledge, my keynote knowledge and all that into a cool AI agent, then I can sell it on a subscription-based model. So that's the goal for this year. And there's some other things I want to do that can... Yeah, you know what I mean? Like because it's so, like, again, with Teachable, like there have been times when I've made money playing soccer with my kids. And I'm not even good at soccer. You know what I mean? But it's like someone bought a course because I sent out an email. So it's like, I'm looking for ways to, yes, have a deep impact with people, especially in person, but then people who maybe can't access me in person or can't afford it, it's like, okay, here's this course, here's this AI agent, so on and so forth, and you're still helping these individuals.
I just went to a live show the other day, but was just sitting there as I'm thinking about AI, talking to people about AI. I'm at the show and I'm like, I don't think this is going away. Live music is not going away. Do you think you all are going to start touring? Or like doing a way to scale is only to go to people where they are?
I mean, yeah, I guess so, yeah. Like, I never really thought about like going on tour necessarily, but yeah, maybe like road showy type of thing. 100%. I think that like people, like when I was going to Austin, Texas, were messaging me like, excited to meet you, in person, been following your stuff for so long. And that's like, whoa, like this thing is working. We're actually doing this thing. And then, people being like, oh, can you do what you've been doing in New York and bring it to LA? Or someone actually just messaged me like, hey, would you do Creator Economy Barcelona? I'm like, okay, holy crap. So it's like, maybe there is doing pop-ups or something like that where we take out the New York for a hot sec and we're in Barcelona for a bit. But I think that's only because I've been able to, one, showcase online to other people what we've been doing here in real life, and also just like maintain that consistency and that character element that we talk about so much. So yeah, like I think between all of us, we all like to speak in real life and stuff, and I think we all would love to value the fact that we go to like Missouri, or picking on Missouri today, but like people are there and want to hear from you, and that's really exciting.
What I'll say, and I'll give you another one, but I think like a big component for me this year has been like reach is the new resume, right? And so if you're using these platforms to distribute your ideas, your mindset, your habits, your goals, your relatability, your story, that can go as far and wide as it can, right? And so I would say like some of the DMs I've got have been incredible, from 18-year-olds in India to college students in London. I always, I get cool opportunities to go speak and go attend these events in these other cities, and I'll put it on my story, right? Sometimes I'm legally obligated to, but also I want people to know that I have motion and I'm out and about, right? And every single time I'll get a message of like, oh, how long are you in town? Do you have time for coffee? Do you have time to meet up? And so I've been incredibly surprised with the breadth that my content has gotten. And so, yeah, I think there are in the future when it feels right? Because it's one DM, so that means, can't have a meetup where there's one person there. But I think, yeah, there's definitely, I think for all creators, especially ones that are building real relationships with their audiences, I love that idea. And especially if you're doing things like, I've seen creators launch books or be a part of very large traditional media campaigns, right, that have come with incredible opportunities to be on red carpet, to do PR events, right? And so I think it's those two worlds are also starting to merge in really cool ways.
There was a prediction I did in the beginning of the year that was focused on this URL to IRL element. And I was basically like, creators who were able to like fill a room with people when they go in real life or they're doing a meetup, have built something really strong and perhaps sustainable, where it's like, oh great, you have 1 million followers on YouTube, but if you're like, hey guys, I'm in LA or I'm in a major city and I'm doing a little meetup, are people there to show up for you? Do they care enough to want to see you in person? And I think that goes back to that intention element, that people are there to take action for you, that when you say, hey, I'm at this pizza place, will someone show up there? I think goes a really long way and something to think about.
Yeah, you have like 4 kids and a family. Like, are you planning to go be more in person with people?
It's funny like that you mentioned that, because I appreciate what you two are doing, because for some reason I get booked to speak more in California than I do in New York City. Like I live in New York City. Can we just go to Queens? Yeah. Like, why am I going to like Palm Springs? You know what I mean? So like, I love what you're doing. It's encouraging me to do more in-person events myself. To your point, if you're not getting invited for whatever reason, just, create the table or whatever metaphor it is. But I'm going to start doing that more, because I think, we're talking about the 1,000 true fans or whatever. And it's like, I feel strongly that getting 10 people to go to a coffee shop in Queens is more impactful than getting 1,000 people to like your post, right? So it's like that in real life stuff. Brands are paying more for that too, because they want that, interactive experience. They want the content for social media. Like, you can do extremely well with that. And you've obviously both mastered it. So I'm just sitting there taking notes.
Who do you ignore and who do you bring closer?
I want to hear your answer.
Yeah, it's fair because you have a lot of.
To this day, I still go through the guest list manually. Even when there's 600 to 1,000 people RSVP to an event, I'll go through it manually. So I did this, our South by event, we actually had 1,200 people RSVP. And I went through manually and checked out everyone who was coming. Now this one, we could have been more open with it, it's no problem. But when I'm in New York and I'm working with a brand that's sponsoring my event, maybe it's Teachable, maybe it's Notion or something, there's an element that I want to curate so that one, the brand is like, okay, there's a high caliber group of people here. And two, that when you show up to my event and you turn around and you run into someone, that person you run into is someone worth, meeting. Whether they're at your level, just getting started or something, but there's some value to be exchanged there versus it being someone random that just wanted a free drink. And so what I'll do is I'll basically go through and I ask a couple questions when there's an application to basically come to the events, name, email, what do you do, blah, blah, blah. And I ask, like, why do you want to come to this event? And if people fill that out, then I'm like, they care about wanting to come to this, especially not just like networking or like they say something, but also like I'll take a look at people's online presence, which is why we go back to being online is important. You have a strong presence online or like I can see kind of what you're up to, I get a better vibe. And like whether or not I manually go through, it's always me. And there's certainly people that I might miss that should be there, but frankly due to capacity or just like me glossing over it, I'll forget them. And it's like, it's nothing personal. I am just like curating this community. The community is relying on me to curate the environment that they've come to expect. And the brand has an expectation in terms of who I promised will be there and the types of people. And so I'll go through all of that manually. And I don't plan on stopping that because I want to make sure that every person in that room, it should be in there. And there's some people who like I'm on the fence about, but I'm like, I want them to come. They had a good response that they said. And then people are always surprised when I meet them and I'm like, oh, you're Steve. I saw you do the bird stuff. He's like, yeah, how do you know? I'm like, I go through every single person. My girlfriend's like, come to bed. And I'm like, hold on, I'm going through the guest list.
Makes you a great host. I think also in this social media world, what I was thinking about is that is such an intentional inversion of the relationship that I have with my audience. Because when I post a video, right, I've got near 250,000 on Instagram, right? It's like Instagram is choosing for me who to show that video to, who to show that piece of content to. I have absolutely no say, right? Other than my following and hashtags, whatever they're scraping off that video. That's why I have a lot of respect for what you're doing with my events now. I've only put on one or two, but I'm doing the same thing where I'm going through a much smaller list, but I'm going through every single application to make sure that I'm exercising my right to choose who gets to be in that room. Because if you view every single piece of content I've ever posted, I've never chosen who gets to show up on those videos, right? But with these events, I get to choose. And so I think that's a right that you should definitely be exercising.
Your newsletter too. Your newsletter is important. Yeah, true. Going to keep emphasizing that. Newsletters, community, and using all of your other social as a top of funnel to those things gets the right people, at least the more or less right people filtered in. If someone's signing up for your newsletter, it's like they want to go deeper with you. They come to your event, they want to go deeper with you.
Terry, I feel like you're one of the more direct people with your audience. So I was curious
on my end, I'm looking for people that are willing to put in the work because I was an educator for so long. People are just like lazy sometimes. Like, how to become a digital marketer by next week? And I'm like, it took me 10 years, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Certain like career pathways, people think you can just like jump into it and you know better than most. Like, people don't ask that of pilots. Like, how can I start flying this thing next week? You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm looking for people who are willing to put in the work, but like the deep work. If you want me to help you with your keynote or your storytelling, what is your story? Don't tell me about the time like you forgot your laptop at work and you had to figure like that ain't gonna work. You know what I mean? So there are certain people that I won't work with because they bore me. Not because they're boring people, because they're not willing, for whatever reason, to not tell their full story. And I'm like, I get that, I respect that, but I'm also tired a lot, so I can't be bored working with you. So having that filter up attracts the right people, it attracts the wrong ones. And what I'm looking for is for me to help them and then they have an impact. So there's this woman, Cynthia, she actually lives here in Queens. I was coaching her for a while and she made enough money to actually move her grandparents into their own apartment in Queens. And I'm like, that's legacy, right? At the same time, I've also done workshops at Walmart down in Bentonville, Arkansas. Great company, they didn't really give a shit though, right? So I'm trying to find the people that are bought in, that really want to do the work, and I can feel like a win through their wins later on.
Can I just add one point there? In addition to who you want in your element, also choosing which elements you want to enter into, I think is interesting. So like living here in New York, there's always so many opportunities of so many events going on and everything, and I've started to get a little bit more strict in terms of where I devote my time. And there was like something going on this morning that I chose not to go to because one, I was really tired. And two, I was like, I need to do a little bit of work before this, but like just choosing like, are things worth your time? I think Sahil Bloom came out with, you know Sahil Bloom? So he came out with an book called The 5 Types of Wealth, or I forget the name of it. But he has like these really good frameworks in there. And one of them is about like time wealth and like where to devote your time. And so it's an interesting framework. Can't think of it off the top of my head, but thinking about like, should I go to this thing next week? Yes or no? And as you start to get more refined as a creator and as an entrepreneur, as a parent, I'm talking from a non-parent standpoint, so a little bit different here. But yes, you start to devote, is this worth my time? Is it not? And like you chose to go to South by Southwest this year. And I'm curious, what went through your mind to be like, why should I go to this? Or maybe it was like a test run or something. So I was just also interested to think about the other end of where do you enter in? What's your criteria?
I mean, one of my big beliefs that I've talked about in some of my videos is this concept of compound networking, right? So I get all these questions whenever I do stuff on networking that tells me that person is viewing networking as something that's transactional, right? If I meet Brett, what can you do for me today? What can Terry do for me today, right? And so I think of the long tail of that and the compression of like, in what other week can you meet Scott Galloway and Kenya Barris and Issa Rae and all these people and learn from them, right? May have the opportunity to even run into them. The green rooms are right next to, like, you run into people all the time, right? And to be able to compress and condense these people that I think are doing incredibly cool shit all around the world into one weekend, even if I don't get anything out of it, I had no goals, to be honest with you. I didn't have a certain dollar amount. My wife's gonna watch this and I'm gonna have another conversation to have when I get home, but like, I didn't have anything. I was explicitly looking, but like, if you're doing cool shit, I wanna touch your hand, I wanna connect with you, I wanna learn more about it, right? Like that was really my only goal.
It's like 2018, I see Damon John at South by Southwest. I had a great exchange with him, so on and so forth, took a picture, bam, gone, right? And then like 4 years later, maybe 5 years later, I had a chance to interview him. And we're talking about, Shark Tank and all stuff, so on and so forth. And I wanted to try to progress the conversation, but I didn't want to be too thirsty. You know what I mean? I'm like, how can I like partner with this guy? A year later, I interview him again. He invites me and my daughter to this event that he did at the Apollo. So we're hanging out with him, Whoopi Goldberg, like all these random people. And I'm like, maybe now's the time you should ask for something. I didn't though. I held back at this, trying to be cool or whatever. Last week, I'm doing an event for one of my partners, and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, Damon John's trying to get a hold of you.
No.
And I'm like, I'm not that hard to get a hold of. I'm like, how hard have you been trying? But again, this is going back like 6-7 years now that I waited. So that strategic patience benefits you as a creator, because sometimes what just happens to you, like the big brand deals you get, they're like years in the making. It's like you met that one person at one time and the one thing who introduced you to somebody else. And if you're not thirsty, you can ask people like about themselves instead of like what you're trying to sell. That's how you form those partnerships.
So the patience is so important. I worked at Teachable for a year and a half or so and building that relationship before we formed something long term. And same with Notion. We're doing an event, a bigger event next week, but like it took me so long for them to finally get involved. But like I maintained contact. When I would see their people at an event, say hi, what's up? Just be friendly. Play the long game. Is like you can't emphasize that enough in this space that we're in. And again, that's why if you want a fast exit, this isn't really the place to be.
And then the one thing I'll say is, in all of our cases, I'm sure the content we create is the invisible hand in that as well. Because when you're not at those events with Damon, he's seeing the stuff you're putting out, right? When people aren't at your events, they're seeing the newsletters. And so that's the invisible, it's keeping you top of mind where other people sort of fall to the wayside.
Or you throw them a little like on their post so that they see your name. They're like, I should have an email to reply to them.
Correct.
So I did want to wrap up because there's all these conversations about AI, or just in general, the internet is on a trend to compress information. In entertainment and stuff, that's had its effect. People are just trying to be funnier, faster, or more extreme, the Mr. Beasts of stuff. But in the education realm, there's a beauty to compressing the information for access to it, and AI is especially like the steps you need when you need them. But I still feel like it negates the learner, and education is freaking messy. And you kind of teed it up wonderfully to my question, which is like, what are the messy or time-consuming parts of your business that are non-negotiable into the future?
I'd say it's mindfulness, to be honest, because the majority of my content, it's stories based on things I've experienced or done myself. So today when I was at the gym, I was like benching or doing whatever, And I'm like, I took a video of it. So I'm like, okay, what's the story? I can bench this much money. Okay, that's boring. Right? Or bench this much weight. That's boring. The real story was how I've been doing mobility work on my shoulders to make sure that when I am getting in heavier weight, that I can maintain it and not hurt myself, right? Because it happened for years and years and years. So the mindfulness there is like, hey, you have to build up these small habits that help you build, get these big outcomes or whatever. Like I'll work on the story. But then what I do is I dump that information to ChatGPT and I'm like, make this sound good. So it's still my story. You'll still see a video of me benching, so it feels personalized. But I'm like, I got to get my kids ready to school. You write this shit, I'll be right back. Yes. And I'll hit post. So it's the mindfulness that AI will never be able to take away from you because it's not following you around all day thinking, okay, what's the story here?
Just to add to that point, I'm very similar. I use Claude from writing my newsletter primarily. And I've created like a Claude project that has all of my past newsletters. So it knows how I talk, it connects things. We were talking about this at South by Southwest. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, but yeah, it does require your mindfulness, your story, so that there is an authentic story element to it. And sometimes I've seen Claude write something, and I'm like, I've never done that, remove that. Here's what I actually did. And then what I love to do is I'll ramble. I'll just ramble and just have my mind flow, and what the AI does is help structure the thoughts. Now, there's the argument to be made, well, that's the whole point of writing, it helps you out there. It's like, well, look, I'm trying to be efficient, but I'm also trying to storytell in a unique way. I'm trying to make use of all the creative tools that are out there. And it's up to me to end up having the final piece that I think this captures what I've been trying to explain. It has myself infused in it. But that, and that could be tedious to an extent, but it's also being more efficient. So I think it's really interesting, the mindfulness element you said, and also trying to find a story for benching. And you're like, well, I'm doing shoulder mobility because small things need to lead to something bigger. And that's interesting to think about.
Earlier in my creator journey, when I first started to experience some real excitement and engagement on my Instagram account, I flirted with a couple AI auto DM responder tools, right? And I thought I was going to be so smart because I was getting asked similar questions a lot of the times. And I quickly ran into some very big problems because I would get DMs from people who were young parents from underrepresented backgrounds that had just lost their job and they wanted to know what to do next. And the very next message that would come less than a second later was be like, hey, if you want to schedule a call with me, you got to click on this link. By the way, it's $80, And so I think I quickly realized that I can't take away in a large part the way I interact with my audience. And so I took out all of that stuff. And now if someone DMs me or someone leaves a comment, I would rather have less engagement or you see me less on my videos if I don't have the time to actually be in there responding to people and actually having that conversation with them. So I've actually pulled back a lot of the AI I use in terms of how I interact with my audience, but I'm doing a very similar thing that y'all are doing where it's it's my story and it's my experience. But yes, sometimes I'm not the best at wrapping up a video in a really spicy way or writing, some of my longer form newsletters or stuff that I've done in the past. So I'm definitely using that. But I think for me, how I engage with my audience is I love the phrase you use for it, but that's the messy work that I don't think I'll ever sort of offload.
I do want to get to something deeper too, because you're all talking about what AI can't replace. I think you already answered it, which was you will always review this thing. That is the least efficient way to go through a guest list.
I was curious. Now it's doing things that don't scale.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
In a year or so, maybe it's someone else or there is an AI that can do it well, but still, yeah.
Yeah. But I was curious with you two, beyond what it can't replace, are there just non-negotiable inefficiencies that make what you do what it is? I know mindfulness takes more time, so maybe that is still the answer.
I mean, I won't make a video if I know if the lesson is there, but the story isn't, I guess. And so it's I'll never make a video again, I guess, because I used to do this all the time. But the how-to stuff you were speaking about earlier in our conversation, right? I will never show up on a social platform again and just tell someone how to do something. I recently partnered with an incredible brand in the nutrition and supplement space, right? And the story I opened that video with is I was late on the concept because I was thinking about how I was gonna get to it, and it was a really moment of vulnerability for me because I had I was working at a startup in a previous phase of my career, and I was putting in all these crazy hours doing all this stuff for the business, investing in my career, and I ended up with a migraine that put me in the hospital. I couldn't recognize my wife in the room sitting right next to me, and I was just I was completely out of it. It took me out of work for a week. That was actually the decision that made me to start seriously investing in content as something that could be a bit more sustainable for me because I was completely out of whack with my work-life balance at that point. That's the story I used to set up how I realized at that point I had medically low levels of like magnesium or something, right? And so one of the 75 essential nutrients and vitamins in the supplement pack was magnesium, and that was sort of the way into that video. But I had to get comfortable enough to tell that story before I could say, okay, here's how I think I could show up, right? I'm not gonna sit behind a desk and just say, let me talk to you about this supplement brand that's paying me to put the bottle right here, right? And so for me, it's like, if I don't have a story, I don't have a video. It's not enough to just know a networking tip or to know a resume tip. It's like, what is the story that's actually going to relate this to something me and my audience is going through?
I had a better response, but I was so trapped in your story.
As he tells us.
Sure, I appreciate that.
I'll say this, and this might be like a cop-out answer, but like AI cannot define your identity for you. And I think it's dangerous when people try to do so, because they'll say, I am a consultant who serves this audience, help me write content, blah, blah, right? So what I do when I work with my clients is I have a series of prompts that helps you identify your true identity, right? Like, who are you? What do you care about? What motivates you? And then from there, you get a more clear profile of who you are, not just how you want to show up online, but how you want to show up in life. And to your earlier point, that's why you have to dump all these stories about yourself into AI. Like the time in junior high when you forgot your lunch bag, like whatever it was, because the more it knows about you, it's like, okay, here's who you are as a person. And when it does give you information, it'll be more aligned with who you are intuitively because it already has that in place. So people try to outsource their personality to AI. And that's scary because artificial intelligence is only useful if you start with natural intelligence. But if you're so lazy, you're like, I don't know, bro, just give me option B. Like, you're gonna sound like a robot because a robot wrote your shit. Like, so the more of yourself that you put into this in these tools, the more you'll get out, and it won't feel cringy. It'll just feel very convenient.
Yeah, that's right. It's so funny, and we experience this as Teachable, like the words that mean things that are deep to humanity, like community, then become a feature, and it gets really confusing what the hell is what. But as community builders, however you're doing it, just like as a last thought for the day, looking at this future, showing up as yourself, regardless of AI, what's your top advice to like building a meaningful community, be it online or otherwise, as we go into this kind of uncharted territory that we're all navigating?
I would just kick it off saying, you're going to have to do things that don't scale, and you got to be consistent. I remember Colin was talking to me, asking for some advice about kicking off for the first, and I'm just like, set a cadence that you can realistically hit, show up each time, have the same people show up each time if they want to come, and you're going to have to do things that don't scale. You're going to have to run around the block and get the FedEx poster board. Like, you're going to have to find the scrappy location just to host the damn thing. And when I think back to the earlier days of Creator Economy NYC, which still keeps me so humble, and even today with the humbleness, with what I'm building, and something that distracts me from even what I've built is the fact that there's so much manual hard work and mental work that goes into it, and you're still doing the things that don't scale. So if you want to build community, I really think it comes down to recognizing that it's not going to come easy, and also you need to be consistent. I can't just be like, I'm going to do this one thing and peace out. It's like, keep showing up, playing the long game.
I'll go next, so you're probably going to feel stronger. I would say this. I would say, this is going to be counterintuitive, but I would explore other options first. Before becoming a community builder, I would explore other options. Maybe you should be a course creator or a speaker or an accountant. I don't know.
Or it doesn't need to be I would say it doesn't need to be intentional. Like I wasn't like, I'm going to be a community builder. It just kind of happens from starting something else, really.
Yeah. So just think to yourself, okay, like, here's my life. There's all these things I can do. Here's one option, but what are the others? Because you might realize, you know what? I want to be a community builder because all these guys seem cool and it seems like the thing, and I want friends and all this stuff. Then you realize this is actually hard. So there's not like a true why behind the what. I know it sounds corny, but you will become bitter, you'll become frustrated, your community is going to suck. So just think, okay, of all the options available, why do I want to do this? Why is this how I want to make my highest contribution to the world? And if you still land on being a community builder, then we got some more advice for you right over here. So
I appreciate the tee up, Terry. I appreciate that. I think one thing that's become big for me as I've scaled my online presence and am now trying to build this in-person one is you have to have anti-goals. You have to know what you don't want, who you don't want in the room, where you don't want the event to be held, what you don't want to grow to. Because the worst thing that can happen to someone, I think, is to have a viral moment, right? Because then you feel almost trapped in that frame of reference. And I've had that happen in my own life where it's like, let me do this thing that's an easy thing to do that will get me a lot of views. And then it changes the expectations from your audience. And so I've experienced that in the digital realm. And so when I do these events, my first event, I could have had 300 people there. There were 45. And that's because I intentionally chose a venue that was smaller. I intentionally went through and said no to a lot of people or pushed them into an email or some sort of wait list, right? And I was very, very slow and intentional because I knew what I didn't want it to be, and I didn't want it to grow into something that I felt like I had lost control of too quickly, or people were there for the wrong reasons, right? Like it's not an influencer meetup. Like you're not there to come hang out with me. Like we're all in this event together. We're all trying to get to a deeper understanding of where we came from and where we want to go professionally and personally and emotionally. Like that's the goal. And I had anti-goals. And so I think that like you have to know what you don't want it to be as well. You can't just have this ideal state in your head.
I love that. I think that's a great place to wrap up. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
We'll talk to you soon, gents.
That's great.
Thank you.
Oh, air handshake.
Yeah,
Terry, Brett, and Colin are all great examples of creators who have built sustainable businesses by focusing on authenticity, community, and strategic growth. They remind us that success isn't just about follower counts or viral moments, but about creating meaningful connections through vulnerability and expertise. By sharing their stories and focusing on character branding over manufactured personas, they've built businesses that align with their values and give them the freedom and autonomy they desire in life. I hope you learned as much as I did today, found something you can apply to your own life, and if nothing else, were inspired by these creators' stories to take a hard look at your 9-to-5 and make sure the way you work is working for you. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our recommended next episode linked here. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you in the next one.